This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Not everyone is careful with your personal information, which might explain why there's a victim of identity theft every 5 seconds in the U.S. Fortunately, there's LifeLock. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a U.S.-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year by visiting LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
It's The Other Side of Midnight with Frank Morano.
I was a big fan of Senator Joe Lieberman, not only as a political figure and a historical figure, and someone that, but as a person, honestly, he was kind enough to come on this radio program fairly regularly. I think we might have been the radio show that he did his last interview with when we were talking about the No Labels movement. And I was always so impressed, even when we would disagree on things, at his fundamental. First of all, obviously, he's very intelligent. But I was always so impressed at this being a person that just exuded decency. And he had these incredible principles, which you would have been beaten down after 30 years in Washington, D.C., and they weren't. They seemed just as fresh, and he had no problem calling out shenanigans no matter what the issue was. One of his frustrations in later years was what he viewed as the leftward drift in the Democratic Party, which is one of the reasons he was exploring the No Labels movement and their efforts to put a third-party candidate on the ballot. Here's a little bit of one of my last interviews with Joe Lieberman talking about some of his frustrations with the Democratic Party.
The Democratic Party is now dominated by the left, not the center left of the party. They're pulling it left, and Joe's the head of the party, but he's getting pulled with it.
Now, I was obviously very disappointed when he passed away. Far too young earlier this year. But as I said at the time, I'm sure I wasn't nearly as disappointed at those that knew him, lived with him, and loved him. And when you think about Joe Lieberman, there's nobody that you think of more frequently than his wife, Hadassah, who was not only frequently mentioned by him, but seemed to be very much a partner in so much of what Joe Lieberman was doing. I'm very, very honored to welcome to the program Senator Lieberman's widow, Hadassah, who I believe is joining us from Israel. Mrs. Lieberman, it's great to talk with you on the radio.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for all your words that you just expressed. Because as a recent widow, I have this enormous pain missing my beloved partner, my friend, my buddy, all the things that meant a lot to us. And I appreciate what you're saying. I really do, and I thank you very much.
Well, you were the first person that I think a lot of us thought about, and we're thinking of you. Now, we're seeing some news reports that there might have been 4 soldiers killed and over 60 injured in a Hezbollah drone attack in Israel. Is that anywhere near where you are right now? Do you have any insight into what's happening over there?
I don't have insight beyond the news that I read at this point in time. It's not terribly close, but everything's not far. This
Sure.
is a small country. And so, every day you hear something else. And yet all I can tell you is that the people just move forward. And I asked my daughter, what's going on? It's okay, Mommy. I have to bring the kids to school. I got to bring them to the bus. I got to make lunch for them. And, she's got to go to the doctor's appointment because she's almost due in another month or 5 weeks.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So, I'm going to be here. What can I tell you? This is the phenomenal state of being here. It's just people move forward. They believe in themselves and the country. Now, obviously, there are always exceptions to that. But it's so sad that we can't come together and live together and speak nicely together. And, I know people look at me naively when I say things like that, but Joey sort of trained me to ultimately always think, like even No Labels was based on, okay, let's not just give them the same stuff, give them another choice. Give us a choice.
Yeah. I mean, I think when people were watching that first presidential debate, you had a lot of folks that were clamoring for some sort of additional choice. So I certainly understand that. So how much time do you spend in Israel these days, Mrs. Lieberman?
Well, now, I don't know. He passed 6 months ago, and I don't know anything except that right away I wanted to come for the high holidays and the whole season. And I called my daughter. She had been with us, after Joe's death for a while and with all the kids and all that. And I know he loves them so much and misses them. And I have to believe he feels that. I have to believe it. And, all I can say is that we don't know what's going to be. And we pray that the strength here manifests itself and that people truly work to save the society, to give back, to eradicate these evils that we have all over the world today.
At 30 minutes after the hour, this is The Other Side of Midnight. Very pleased to be talking with Hadassah Lieberman. We're going to talk about Senator Joe Lieberman's final book in just a moment, Faith's Answers to America's Political Crisis, How Religion Can Help Us. Now, Mrs. Lieberman, I know that your parents were both Holocaust survivors, if I'm not mistaken. And I would think that being in Israel, especially when there's so much tumult going on in the Middle East right now, has some special significance for you, given your family history. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate. I was born in Prague, and my parents were my mother in Auschwitz and Dachau, my father in slave labor camp. So that was my background. And we became immigrants to Gardner, Massachusetts, and then other places. And then I eventually met Joey when I was in Gardner, Massachusetts. So my background is American for most of my life because we immigrated. My parents didn't have the language of the country and the city, and they had to work on all of that. So I was raised that way. So for me to ultimately meet Joey, United States, he was not a United States Senator. He was the Attorney General. He just won that race in the state of Connecticut. And I was proud of him, and I liked his views. And, what you were saying is that, and what's amazing to the kids and me now is so many people who never really intimately knew him, but they intimately felt connected to him. They really liked him. They trusted him. We knew that, but it's all over the world and all of the letters and words. And the strength he had and being strong and honest. And that's why this new book, which I read as it was in the process of being final editing, I was amazed by it. I said, Joey was alive, and I said, Joey, I just read the almost final edition, and I want to say it's a real legacy to you. It's you speaking to everyone in such a strong way, and I'm so glad to have shared it. And now to have it published after his death. Who knew this all would happen so quickly?
No, that's wonderful. I'm wondering, just given you sharing your history with the senator, how did you guys meet initially?
Well, I have a roommate from school, and I went to Boston University my last 2 years of college. And she said, there's someone for you to meet. And I was divorced, and Bill was divorced. And I thought, okay. So she said, I'd like you to meet him. He's a nice guy. I know him from my synagogue, but she didn't know him beyond that. And I said, okay, I'll meet him. And that's how we met. and fell in love. We had to figure all this stuff out. He had 2 kids, and I had 1 kid. And, bringing that together, I wrote about it in my book, just how important pulling families together after divorce to make them united and together.
And any tips for people that may find themselves in a similar family situation? You guys seem to obviously have made it work pretty effectively.
It was very, very hard work, and we both worked hard at it all the time. And my son, at that time, I think he was 6, going on 7. The older ones were, it was 12 and 14, around that age. And they were 2 different ages, 2 of them being in the teen time and my son being younger, which in and of itself was always, some help. We had to really work at this. And what I advise is when you go into a family, it's a new family, really, and you have your family that has been broken in terms of one spouse, that you have to very, very honestly speak to these new children. And when I say children, it's because if you marry each other, you have to make each other's children your children. And you can't play any games about that. And you have to really speak honestly. And I can't tell you how many times I went all the way upstairs in the New Haven house because I just had to let Joe be alone with, some weird teenage stuff that always goes on. And I thought, I'm not going to stay here because they don't like me that much yet, and I can't say anything. Before we got married, they were fine. But then after, it became more difficult, which you can understand. So I just worked at it all the time and made no difference between my son and his children. And now there's no such thing. They're our children together.
That's wonderful.
And I really, really feel that.
That's wonderful. Well,
after his death, important.
Oh, no, I can't imagine.
If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. micro-tabb.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
In state and local government, tech upgrades aren't optional, they're essential. Whether it's improving digital services, protecting public data, or modernizing outdated systems, the demand for skilled IT professionals has never been higher. CBT Nuggets helps you stay ahead with affordable, on-demand IT training that's built for your schedule. Our short, practical videos and hands-on virtual labs make it easy to build real-world skills in networking, cybersecurity, cloud technologies, and more. You don't need expensive hardware or complicated setups, just a browser and the motivation to grow. Whether you're an IT admin, public service tech, or new to the field, CBT Nuggets gives you the tools to better support your team and your community. And with new content added regularly, there's always something relevant to learn. Join thousands of learners who are upgrading their skills and advancing their careers. Start your 7-day free trial today at cbtnuggets.com. Because smarter tech skills don't just help you, They help your whole community succeed.
All right. So the senator's last book was Faith's Answers to America's Political Crisis, How Religion Can Help Us Out of the Mess We're In. And this is certainly the one thing that everybody can agree on, left, right, in between, is that it does seem like we're in a little bit of a mess right now. This is clearly a deeply personal and timely work. Tell us about the inspiration behind this book and why the senator felt that it was important to write in the first place.
Joey was, he was upset with what he saw as he looked around and moved around, planes and this and that. And just the discourse between one party affiliates and the other party's affiliates was so horrendous. He was upset at how freshly people talked and how, you got to the point where you saw people not really wanting to sit down at the same table and talk to each other if they were of the opposite party. And this was disappointing and upsetting and led to bad behavior. And I know he thought about this a great deal. And I didn't know much about the book as he was writing it. I just know he'd always say, okay, I got to go to an hour or two on the book, or I've got to finish this up. I'll be back. Even before he died, after we'd had a nice lunch and a nice day, he said to me, okay, sweetheart, I've got to go into the study for just, a short time to finish something up. And it was that night that he walked into his study and fell down and hit his head and da-da-da-da-da-da. So, yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I'm just reacting. I can imagine what that must have been like to deal with for you and your family. Somebody that was still had so much to offer, to fall and hit his head in such a manner.
Oh, and then the cut, whatever it hit. It was on the bookcase, and so his brain, unbeknownst to me, the ambulance came, everything, but his brain had filled with blood. And so we were in the ambulance room, and they said, okay, we need to empty the blood out of his brain. The only way we can do it is, cut into his skull. So I was sitting there as Joe's proxy. I said, of course, whatever it is done to save him. They went into with the ambulance into the the emergency room, and they came out right away and said his brain stem is totally covered with blood. We can't do anything. I was so shocked. So to go into this book, which was published October 1st, when I read it, the Faith's Answer, but not just one answer. It was a Joe Lieberman book with his love of humanity. And he talked about how so many of us we have words of faith and words that we're taught to speak to each other and work toward, and that this book speaks about all the religions and all their attempt to be stronger and more unified. And even when it's not total unification, it's a step toward, because we're all talking to the same creator, and we're the humanity under, and therefore we must react and speak and act like a humanity that's chosen by God. So that's why I was amazed by this book.
In the book, Senator Lieberman emphasizes bringing God's values back into public life. How do you think these values can practically influence the current political climate that we're in now?
To have respect, deference for a supreme being. And I know everyone doesn't have the same deference, respect, or faith in a supreme being, but we need to respect each other and learn from each other and learn how we raise children in a unified, respectful way and teach them to speak properly and not to scream horrible words and not to have leaders speak those same words in public. We are, as leaders in public, we've been taught by our Jewish texts, I know, Talmud and everyone else's, that we have to listen to the words of God. Whatever the name is we call our supreme being, we have to learn to respect and speak to each other and to educate our children, to speak truthfully and not to insult them, whether it's the neighbor or it's on public spaces.
One of the things that I've tried to do on radio and in my own life is, especially when there's people that you disagree passionately about, not let those conversations ever become less than civil. And yet, unfortunately, that's really become the norm. And I know the senator identified partisanship and incivility as the root causes of kind of the spirit of national pessimism that we're in the midst of now. How did he think, and feel free to add your own view, that faith-based solutions could help restore civility in politics?
Well, in faith-based solutions, civility is one of the things that we have to master, that we've had to master. Respect for the elderly, respect for the parent, respect for all that we're involved with in a way that works. And he meant take some of the rules and regulations that we have, don't leave it an abandoned society, that we're not disciplining ourselves to go forward. You can't teach children to speak badly at home and in the neighborhood and, you know, in a political arena or on stage, wherever it is. We have to work harder at ourselves. I know some people will think that's naive, but you know what? Let's call upon each other and let's use what many of us have been taught through our lives, through our childhood, through our parents. And if anyone else who hasn't been taught that, let us use that to become, unified circles, help people in the neighborhood who have lacked that background. That's what we have to aim for. We cannot keep this incivility going and expect to have positive results from any of us.
One of the things that the senator became known for was working across the aisle. How did his faith help him remain open to collaborating with people who he might disagree with politically?
Well, there's some lack of unity amongst different people within each religion, some being more religious, some being less religious. He never liked the inability for people to sit down in a civil manner to talk to each other. And you're praying together, so you need to take what you learn and how you speak to the Lord and how you speak to our fellow men, women, in how we speak. And he disliked that lack of civility, and he disliked that. And yet we're a democracy. We have to speak with each other. If we don't agree with them or they don't believe the way we believe, we have to learn to be respectful and not have quarrels and not teach our children that you quarrel about everything, because that's how they become. And they think that that's the civil way to be. And our friends, when we sit, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're an independent. You have your views. I have my views. And we have to talk to each other. We must keep our civility strong and positive.
The senator obviously spoke about the importance of his faith a great deal, and he spoke about it in both personal and public life. How did he balance these two worlds, especially during times of significant political strife? It's not the easiest thing in the world. How did he manage that?
No, it's not the easiest thing in the world. And I always marveled at his strength because he just had this spine that kept him straight and strong. And he took on, some of the people who disagreed or gave him, critical words about this or that and the disagreements. And he was able to handle it, and he did it in a civil way. He had that strength, and consequently, people who didn't agree with him began to show some respect. And that's important. But he did it all the time. He prayed 3 times a day, morning and later in the afternoon and the evening. And I always said, Joey, it's like you're praying to God directly. You're so strong. So when he died suddenly like that, I felt the angels picking him up and bringing him to the heavens. And that's how I had to believe to feel more strength inside myself. Joey had that constitution, and his father and mother had strong spines. They went forward under all kinds of circumstances and taught him to be a good kid, a good adult. They were very proud of him and always spoke about his accomplishments in the midst of all this turmoil and this disagreement. He really cared about humanity. He loved people. He was someone, when he went out, what I used to say during campaigns, what you see is what you have. He wasn't a two-faced person. He wasn't a liar. He said what he believed in, whether everyone disagreed or didn't. He believed in something, and he went about trying to convince people. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it didn't work. And there was frustration. But he didn't really he was a man who kept it inside him, didn't really discuss it.
There are going to be a lot of folks listening that are obviously convinced that your husband was a tremendous man of faith and that this was integral to his character and everything they did. But there are going to be some folks listening that are going to say, how can someone who was so deeply religious have been a lifelong Democratic elected official and, well, not lifelong, but a longtime Democratic elected official as the Democrats became increasingly hostile to a lot of the values that organized religion promotes. Is that a tension that he wrestled with at all, particularly running for vice president or president?
He felt that he had to undertake the role of leadership, particularly in running for those offices and representing that magnitude of people at various times, and to run as a candidate, as he did for VP and other things. And that was tough. But he felt as a representative, he owed it to the people to work hard at representing and in a role of leadership that was able to communicate with everyone, including people who did not disagree, people who did not understand. Now, did it work all the time? No. There were people who continued to dislike him, but he said his role in leadership obviously would cause those kinds of disagreements with people who didn't agree with what he thought. So it was a strong belief, and he assumed that position as a representative of, the United States, of democracy. And there were certain things he had to give into.
Well, Mrs. Lieberman, it has been great talking with you. I hope we can chat again. I'm hoping people check out the book, Faith's Answers to America's Political Crisis. Please stay safe while you're over there in the Middle East.
Thank you very much, and I wish you good luck and good good vibes.
Thank you. I will absolutely take the well wishes. Hadassah Lieberman. If you want to comment on any portion of our conversation, you're welcome to give me a call, 646-720-0635. That's 646-720-0635. This is The Other Side of Midnight. Straight ahead.
If you're having problems with your septic system and you're tired of spending so much money each year to have it pumped, then SeptiClean is the answer for you. SeptiClean is an advanced specially formulated blend of bacteria used in the treatment of home and commercial septic systems. The breakdown of waste in your system relies on biological activity of naturally occurring bacteria. SeptiClean restores the natural biological process in your septic system and boosts the existing biological activity. SeptiClean is completely safe on all plumbing and can help prevent expensive emergencies in pumping. SeptiClean has approximately 6 to 100 times the bacteria count of other leading off-the-shelf brands in a 1-year supply. SeptiClean comes in a water-soluble pack, which you flush down the toilet once a month with no mess or stress. Save time, money, and maintenance on your septic system. Find SeptiClean at Emporium True Value Hardware on Main Street in Sag Harbor or visit micro-tab.com. That's micro-tabb.com. Micro-tabb.com.